And one of the reasons, I don't know, reasons or excuses in the West, for instance, where the social welfare state is entrenched, and one of the justifications given for why they are really anti-immigration is because, they are coming here to get our welfare, right? And they don't contribute, and they just leech off the rest of us, right? So would you say that, I mean, Lee Kuan Yew also talked about this, right? There must always be the incentive to work, and that's why unemployment insurance or minimum wage, although there are forms of it already implemented, was for the longest time frowned upon, right? So would you say that there is some merit to that argument, and if so, how would we overcome that?
So there's often this logic that if social welfare is too generous, it takes away people's first work ethic, right? And then it's inferior to competition, and that's a healthier way to meet your needs. But that's the narrative. But I mean, we've been doing, me and my colleagues, right? In all the many years that we've been doing research, talking to people, especially say in the minimum income standards project, where we ask people, what do you want? What is an acceptable way of life? People will never say that, I want to compete, I want to win. Right? They want to meet their basic needs. They want to live well. They want freedom. They want to be independent. Nobody needs competition. So this idea that competition or market logics is the most natural, it is not. It is not natural. It's not what people want. It's not the only way to organize social welfare. There are policy decisions, right? And I think these are policy decisions often based on a faulty model of human motivation, and probably unquestioned faith in the fairness of competition. It pays too little attention to entrenched privilege and so on. So this idea of abuse, that if welfare is too generous, people will abuse it, actually has very long roots. We can trace it back to 19th century England, when they were debating how to reform the poor law. They were in a similar dilemma, right? They were thinking, well, we want to help people in poverty, but if you do too much, then you make them lazy. So they settled on what they call the principle of less eligibility. Here, eligible doesn't mean qualified, it means like desirable, right? Eligible, bachelor kind of. So principle of less eligibility. And their logic is this: you want to help people, but you want to be careful that they don't become lazy. So what do? The principle is that the living standard of the person on welfare must be poorer to the poorest person in the workforce. So the best standard of living in the social welfare system must be inferior to the living standards of the poorest working person. So you separate it, leave a gap. So to make sure there is no incentive for the lowest paid worker to go to welfare because that is poorer, right? That logic is very strong, and based on that logic, they set up workhouses. Sometimes you see it in Victorian BBC dramas. They put people needing help in workhouses, and they create meaningless work for them. They have to crush bones to turn it into fertilizer. You have to break stones, plate straw, do all kinds of things. And of course, they are not treated well. The idea is that you both want to help, but you want your help to somehow also be repellent to poor people. You want to keep them away, right? So it's meant to be a selection mechanism so that only the truly desperate will come to your system. You are in no danger of abuse. But what that usually means is that the people in the workhouse lead a very horrific life, right? And we see this logic, this is not just 1800s England. We see this logic even today. What I said about social housing, principle of less eligibility. If you want people to buy flats, make sure your alternative is of a lower quality. It's the same for social assistance. You want people to stay in the workforce, make sure your ComCare social assistance never pays anything close to wages, right? So that there is a clear gap. If you want welfare, well, then it's as much as high, maximum is half of lowest wages. That's why you see this clear gap between progressive wage at the basic level and social assistance. But what it means is that the people on assistance you don't live anyone out of poverty. You trap them in insecurity and indignity. And actually, there is a reverse dynamic, right, that analysts have spotted, which is that when you keep social assistance very low, you give employers no incentive to increase wages, right? So the lower you push your assistance, the lower the lowest wage will be. Same logic, right? I can pay you $1 more than social assistance and you still work for me, because if you quit, you get $1 less. So it's a race to the bottom. So in countries with very meager social assistance, they also have a problem with low wage.